Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So yes, let's get an update on what's been going on in Korea. Yes, Biden came to South Korea for a 3-day visit before going on to Japan. It wasn't that eventful, but we'll talk about it, but we'll also talk about the guy who almost became president, who's also creating more drama right now. There's a lot going on because it looks like he's becoming unhinged and certainly unloved. So first of all, new president, Yoon Suk-yeol, did pretty well with the trip by Joe Biden from the United States, cementing the alliance, showing that there is unity in the direction with the military direction and posture with North Korea, because in general, with South Korea, the conservatives in South Korea take a more hardline stance with North Korea, and the liberals take a more engagement stance. But more than that, what starts to happen when you talk about engagement with North Korea is more of like, well, then how do you then treat your partners in that multi-party alliance? So then the liberals will take a little bit more of a friendlier stance with China. That pisses off the conservatives because it's kind of like, wait, how do you cozy up to China when China is essentially the big brother of North Korea? You're basically then gonna be just gonna be going to the big bad wolf. Then also the liberals are very much against Japan, whereas the conservatives kind of, well, maybe take a pass at a little bit more of the tumultuous history between South Korea and Japan, and therefore the relations between the United States, Japan, and South Korea are much more aligned under a conservative administration than it would be under a liberal administration. But as a whole, nothing changes. As a whole, there really is no different policy change in the bigger picture. And I think that is why perhaps like in the US media, like they barely covered it. I was a little offended by that. They were basically just talking about infant formula versus Biden's trip to Korea. They're trying to spin it somehow. We're like, oh gosh, what are we gonna say instead of his trip to Korea? Talk about infant formula, and which is important, but they barely even mentioned Yoon Suk-yeol's name in a lot of coverage, at least on NBC. I don't know about the other networks. All right, let's get to the guy who almost became president, because Jae-myung lost by 0.7%. Remember, this guy could have been the one welcoming Joe Biden. Instead, he is running for a National Assembly seat, which is basically our version of Congress. And he's running for a district that he had no ties to. He never even lived there. And I guess that's basically possible in South Korea because the districts that you run in are selected by the party. So you can have absolutely no connection to the district whatsoever and run in it. And so it's all the way in Incheon, you know, sort of near the Incheon International Airport. And last time we covered it, you know, he had shoved a young girl, you know, out of the way, saying like, you know, this is my spotlight, I'm gonna make a speech now. And what had happened in the interim, he has been kicking up a lot of drama. So most recently, he did something really crazy. He's not been getting a lot of love there. So he went down to his old district. Now his old district is, like we said, like maybe like a 2-hour drive away, in like an hour south of Seoul. Incheon is like an hour west of Seoul. And so he went back to his old district, and like at 10 p.m. at night, he did like some rally in front of his old supporters saying like, oh gosh, support me. And people were like, his critics were like, wait, you're not running in this district. You're not running for president. You should be campaigning over in Incheon. What the heck are you doing in your old district? It makes no sense. And Cheol-soo is running right near that district for an assembly seat of his own, and he went on the campaign trail and he threw some major shade, uncharacteristic of his more demure style. He's kind of getting out there, getting more aggressive and saying like, this guy's crazy because he's getting no love. He's finding like, that district over in Incheon is actually dangerous for him. This guy's lost it. And he came out and, crawled into his own district in the middle of the night where there was nobody, and he held his rally. Other people, the party leader of the conservatives are calling him crazy, calling Jae-myung crazy because, like, it makes no sense. Like, why are you campaigning in a district that is not your district? That is the height of cuckoo-ness. And so that was crazy. But before this happened, I think, well, obviously we know why. He is craving some sort of adulation, and at least he could go back to his old supporters for some sort of comfort, some sort of safety, some sort of peace. Because, you guys, some dude from the second story window of a restaurant threw down a water bottle at him while he was campaigning. Yeah. Well, they caught him, they arrested him, they locked him up, and then Jae-myung later on was just like, oh, well, maybe, we should, hopefully he'll get some sort of forgiveness, If he wanted to forgive him, he wouldn't have locked him up and pressed charges, you see? And we know this because in a different incident, there was a car that was driving by, in Korea, there are like these narrow alleyways, and a car was driving by, and this guy rolled down his window and was like kind of cussing out Jae-myung in that district. And then Jae-myung yelled back saying like, you know what, if you say those kind of things to me, like that's against the law, I can lock you up. So yeah, again, it is proven that this guy, you say bad things about a politician, he would want to lock you up. That's the kind of guy he is. And so, wow. Do you really want to have that kind of person in power, even at the National Assembly level? Thank goodness we don't have him at the presidential level. And then another thing, multiple times, he walked into restaurants where you're supposed to take off your shoes. Now, in Korea, there are some restaurants where you're supposed to take off your shoes, but he just walked in and, just didn't care. And he got yelled at by like the restaurant owners. And so it's kind of weird, Usually like restaurant owners that will suck up to, any kind of power, but that's the indication that we're getting from this district that these people don't really like him. They kind of feel like, who the heck is he walking in here trying to use us for his political career? And then people were also saying, people in the comments were asking like, yeah, like he's probably doing this to try to shield himself from the further arrests or investigations with his still unresolved scandals. And in the National Assembly, there is generally some protection, and this happens in a lot of nations where the assembly members are protected from arrest, and usually that is done to protect democracy. So in the good and positive way of that being in existence is that you're trying to protect your legislative branch from a dictator arresting all of the congressmen and then putting him in jail and saying like, oops, there's no legislative branch, so I get all the power, or arresting them all and throwing them all in jail under false charges and then putting in people that are loyal only to him or her. And that's what that was initially intended for, because that definitely happens, especially under like military juntas, like military dictatorships. That's a favorite tactic. But it shouldn't be abused where then people try to get away with being exempt from crimes. And that is definitely a way to muddy the waters. I don't think that people are 100% exempt in Korea, but of course, I don't know. We'd have to see. And what I've noticed a lot of the times is that a lot of these legal things, and then we've seen a lot with the whole Donald Trump situation in the United States, a lot of these legal things are only really tested when somebody is actually that bad enough to act so horribly that that's kind of like the first case that you've ever had to, really kind of apply the law to it and be like, I guess it doesn't really fit exactly, and we're gonna have to figure out how to do this. And then usually people can wiggle their way out of it because usually people aren't that bad. People are being really bad these days. And so that is kind of the latest. So, the polling. So the polling shows that he is not overwhelmingly liked in this district, Jae-myung. So the best poll, we only have 9 days left and to the election. And the best poll that he has is about a 10-point lead. And another poll shows a single-digit lead. And then another poll shows a single-digit loss. So it is not in the bag for him. So thank goodness. But it could go either way at this point. We just don't know. And these districts are a lot smaller, so these things can be swayed. Like we were saying in the other the cult video, a church can sway the outcome of an election sometimes, and that's why they try to press their power and try to intimidate these politicians on certain issues. So what do you guys think? This guy, I think it's pretty clear what kind of a guy this is, but why do you think people are just so enamored and still tricked by the charm of this kind of politician? It's just, gosh, it just won't stop. It just won't stop. But I think it's becoming clearer and clearer, and hopefully the people over in Incheon will wise up. And especially seeing him go to a different district, it's kind of like going to your ex-girlfriend, when he should be at home, with his girlfriend or wife. Why he going back to his ex-girlfriends? It's really sus. It's weird. It's just so weird. What do you guys think? Put in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye, guys.
Tune in next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Love you.